So welcome everybody. Good morning. We're going to be talking about sort of new and sort of existing ways to connect with young audiences. I'm joined by Caroline Wilson, who's an independent curator, producer for Under London, Tom Jowett, a film programmer and marketing manager at Oxford's Ultimate Picture Palace, Hafa Salis Ross, who's a freelance film journalist and community engagement and learning manager at Aberdeen's Belmont Film House, and by Tyrone Walker-Hebburn, film producer and owner of Genesis Independent Cinema. Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me this morning. I suppose the sort of first thing I wanted to touch on is that in the sort of research that's been carried out over the last year by Film London about sort of engaging new audiences, one of the sort of the two main barriers that were identified by Film London was for young people to get into cinema. Was the price and also the lack of relevant content. So Tom, you took part in sort of launching the first young person ticketing scheme at Ultimate Picture Palace. Could you tell us about your experience of that, some of the surprises that you met along your way?
Yeah, sure thing. So just for a bit of context, the Ultimate Picture Palace is a single screen independent cinema in Oxford. Like a lot of independent cinemas outside of London, we've had a really, really strong older audience base. So over the 3 years between 2017 and 2019, for example, we were averaging between 15 and 18% of our ticket sales were deemed as young people ticket sales. So that would be students and child tickets. And being in a university town like Oxford, which has a student population of about 27%, we saw that there was definitely scope for us to grow that particular audience for us. So when Film London gave us the opportunity to launch a discounted ticket scheme for young people, we jumped at the opportunity really, and having identified that the cost of tickets being the biggest barrier for people in this age bracket, we recognised this was something which we understood as well from local audiences too. So we launched a £5 film pass scheme for 15 to 25-year-olds, and it's been fantastic. We've absolutely loved taking part in the scheme in generally. So over the past year, we've sold just shy of 3,000 tickets using that scheme. That represents 14% of total ticket sales. But throughout that period, we've also still sold a substantial number of student tickets and child tickets too, another 14%. So our sales, which consist of the young person category now, has jumped up to 28% in this period, which has been really, really fantastic for us. And we've had about 1,700 people sign up for this £5 film pass scheme as well. So yeah, it's been brilliant just looking at kind of like the top line figures there. We've seen a real growth in this audience by taking part in this scheme. I won't waffle on too much about the titles and what's really surprised us. For example, when we first reopened in May, we had a lot of those kind of like reopening award season titles, such as Minari and Judas and the Black Messiah. They did really well for us with this film, with this particular age bracket as well. And going into 2022 award season as well, films like Licorice Pizza and Titan did really well for us too. But I just want to touch upon the classics, because that's where we found the most success actually using this scheme. We found like an incredible hunger from our young film lovers to discover and immerse themselves in film history. We had some classics that we knew would do well with this age bracket. So we did some one-off screenings of films like The Wicker Man and The Exorcist on Halloween, where we got sold over 50% of our allocation for those tickets were using the young person film pass, which was amazing. But there were some more unusual titles that really performed well with this age bracket as well. Films like The 400 Blows and even Carl Theodor Dreyer's Audette did really, really well. So that was just under 50% of tickets sold for the young person's age bracket. But the biggest result for us was we did a season of Wong Kar-wai classics. And for In the Mood for Love, 56% of the tickets we sold were young audience tickets. And for Chungking Express, it was 61%, which was fantastic. And these were screenings that almost sold out every time. I think we achieved about 75% occupancy across 3 screenings for those 2 titles alone. So yeah, it's been fantastic. We've really loved taking part in it.
Oh wow, it's so great to have such tangible data and evidence that you are really sort of connecting with the young audience, especially on some sort of wonderful classic titles. Hafa, how about you in terms of working at Belmont Film House? And because I believe they've got a young person's ticket offer, don't they?
Yeah, I think with me, I am less responsible for the ticket offer itself because I take care of the learning side of it. So one of the things that I do that heavily involves young people is young programmers. So we have young programmers here at Belmont, and we try to bring young people in as a cohort and work with them for a period of months, trying to teach them about exhibition, trying to make them understand how to curate a season, not only choosing the films, but understanding which screen to allocate them to, how to deal with marketing, how to deal with distributors and all of that. And this year, for the first time, we decided to work within a school instead of doing open calls. So we have chose a school in an area of town that was an area that we haven't worked with before, and pupils that had not even been to the Belmont before. Just for context, we are the only independent cinema in Aberdeen, which is an oil town. We have 2 universities and a college, so there is a large population of university students, but we were trying to get them a bit younger. So I was working with a group of 16 and 17-year-olds from the school, and we worked on a theme called Generations. And surprisingly to me as well, as Tom was saying, they were really into the classics. I came in with all of my recent films talking about Booksmart and Lady Bird and all of that. But they wanted to watch The Breakfast Club. They wanted to watch John Hughes. They wanted to be talking about classic horror films. A lot of them I couldn't show it because they were 18, but they wanted to watch them anyway. They were really into the older films, and during the pandemic, they had access to them online and on streaming platforms. And I think that they took a deep dive and really found out about different films. So when they came back to the cinema, they had this desire of watching them on the big screen. So this culminated in an event that happened 3 weeks ago. And we had Young Programmers Weekend there, where we shown The Breakfast Club, which was a fantastic event, almost sold out, and The Perks of Being a Wallflower. And we had discussions and introductions by these young people, and they were trying to find commonalities between films that were big hits in the 80s and films that are more recent, and how they portray young people. And it was a really healthy discussion, and we had really good feedback from teachers and from their families, and they are going to continue working with us in the future in other capacities now. So it's been great.
Oh, that's brilliant. And so when we sort of speaking about sort of the lack of, when people say lack of relevant content, would you say then working with young people in that capacity has just been kind of an essential part of finding out what young people really want to see and not sort of casting? I think because when we talk about young people, often this is just a blanket term that goes over them, and sort of forget that they're not homogenous, or we're not a homogenous group of people that all like the same thing. So in terms of working with young programmers groups, and I know that Tyrone as well, obviously at Genesis, there's so much work with the local community and having venue takeovers, and I know that you've worked with Caroline with Under London. How has that been developing those relationships with, whether it's with schools or with young programmers groups? How do you sort of start to develop those new connections?
Hi everybody. So just to let everyone know, I'm the owner of Genesis Cinema in London, 5-screen independent cinema. So we do work very closely with the local community. I'm obviously from that area, as you can tell from my accent. So it's very dear to me, and very important for me for for kids to be able to get that experience of queuing up outside a cinema, getting excited before you get in there, because I remember that vividly myself. And then right the way through, 16 to 25-year-olds is the core kind of audience we're talking about. So we find starting early is very good. So starting with the schools, we work very closely with the schools, and we do lots of different incentives to get schools in. And we found that they do a lot of things now. So they do like a gift at the end of term. If the children have been to school every day that term, then a treat they do is they bring them along to the cinema. So, which is kind of incredible that they have to do that, but that's a great thing that they can do, and we can help incentivize that. And then working with the communities as far as, lots of stuff that you guys have already said, as far as working with local film clubs, obviously working with organisations like Under London. We work with Chocolate Films. We work with every kind of different community we can work with who have got groups. We know we're not experts at trying to talk to those communities directly, so we talk to different groups, and they've already got networks in place. Films are, as we all know, is an excellent medium for education. It's funny what Haffa says about and Tom about the 80s, 90s and noughties films and how they portray young people. Obviously, I'm not the youngest person on the board here today, but I remember seeing those films first time around, and I think they're still relevant because young people, as you rightly say, are not homogenous. It's like homogenous. They've got but the films and the issues that those films were portraying then are still kind of the same issues that young people have today. So we've also found that those films are extremely popular, and one of the things that lockdowns and reopening, lack of content gave us was we did have to scratch around for products. So we were looking for good, relevant products, and we were looking for people who we could show those films to. And we found, like you guys, that the 16 to 25-year-olds wanted to see those films. Whenever we're just coming up for our birthday screen, so we show films from the last 22 years now. And one film that always tops the charts is a 35mm version of Lost in Translation, which I know it's a great film, but it always tops the charts. It kind of always surprised me that that's the one that does really well. But we've found a massive increase in engagement with all our social media platforms as well. So not just an increase in the amount of users that we're getting, it's also that engagement over the last couple of years where we've tried different products. And as you said, Tommy, Minerva, Licorice Peach, Wicker Man, we've had success with those as well. I think where we've all had to be a bit more choosy with what we're putting on and actually thinking of, rather than just getting all the stuff that's given to us and stick it on, we've had to really think about what we've had to put on. And it's surprising, those films have done really well. So for us, it seems to be films that are showcasing young people's issues, and also the world cinema, Korean films. The world cinema was really successful for us. And again, I've got friends of mine who found that kung fu movies, when they were they're not Asian guys, they're non-white British people, but they just found that watching a kung fu movie showed a non-white person in an environment who could be a hero, and they connected with that. So I think there is this. Yeah, there is this. If you're putting something different on, there's always a way that young people can connect with it, because we do. You all do. We all do have the same issues.
Oh yeah, 100%. And there's a nice comment in the chat here from Janine. It says, maybe that's why classics work better for young people, as they've more appeal to a wide range of taste, rather than some new titles with niche themes or target audiences. And I think some of the parts, especially independent film, it's about, they don't always have the budget to do the reach that some of these bigger titles do. So with classics, they've got time to sort of work through and build that sort of like word of mouth. But Caroline, as an independent curator, how has your experience been of developing relationships with established venues and exhibitors and then working in that space? How has that been? How was your journey sort of going through that process?
It's been quite good, to be honest. I think it's like with Genesis, I work with like Bobby and like the events team, and they're very like open-minded as well. And I think they work with a collection of groups, so like Bounce Cinema, a lot of like young groups as well. So they kind of know each of our niches and knows how to interact with us. And I think they've been good in understanding that, you know, you can utilize other areas of the space as well, you know, the foyer, the upstairs bar, and you can be creative with some of the events you're putting on. And I think it's always important to have your inbox open and to just be, you know, read the emails, you know, always kind of keep your finger on the pulse. Don't ever like, because you don't want to miss out on something. So they've been really good. And yeah, I think it's all about respect really, and maintaining those relationships. I think I've been pretty lucky. I attended, like when I was younger, I just used to attend things for like fun. So like I kind of just got to meet people organically as well. And sometimes I just come as like a fan as well, and then I see things that I like and I'm like, oh, that was clever, I liked how they did that. Or you know, just seeing how things have developed with like just, it could be like even program notes, how that's turned into QR code, like just seeing like little things and I'm like, oh, that's clever, we should do that for the next screening. But I think the main thing is just continuing to push yourself. And we'll, like we've discussed with the classic screenings, I think it's just about intentional programming and clear thinking. And I think, Thea, when we were talking before, we were kind of talking about allowing, you know, a residency, or allowing, you know, in theatres or in other arts venues, they have like a residency, which clearly means there's been some thought put into the programming, or these takeovers and stuff. So I think it's just about you know, really talking to people, and that takes time. And I know as a venue, there's a lot of things you're sometimes you're just trying to like get through your business day, you know, meet your bottom line and stuff. But I think if you do have like an events team or something, really fostering in those relationships. And even with what I'm doing, we've kind of worked with like sixth form colleges in the local area doing work experience. And then just the insight never stops. So I think just continuing to talk to people. Yeah, and also like on your social media as well, just like reading the comments as well. So I'm not all like, I'm lucky because it's like I'm not like Kim Kardashian in it, so like mostly like it's like positive in it, but like you kind of hear, like you kind of get to, I think tracking the engagement is quite important as well, even seeing on like analytics the age group that's coming through. So just keeping an eye on that, and then continuing to push yourself, not just thinking, okay, like not just coasting through, if that's clear.
Yeah, definitely.
Tia, I just wanted to touch upon something really quickly, because we're talking about classics and how popular they can be. But working with young people, I think there's an important distinction to be made here, that of course they're a homogenous group, but there's two groups that I think are important to keep in mind. There are young people that you want to attract to the cinema, and that might not be cinephiles, do not have a knowledge of cinema. But there's also a group that is very engaged. There's a group who will queue up to watch the new Wes Anderson, and who know much more than I do about film sometimes. And when programming and when planning initiatives, I think that it's important to understand who you're talking to, so you do not pedestrianize the ones that are engaged and that have knowledge, but at the same time, you don't alienate the people who might not be as passionate about cinema as you are. So you're trying to share that passion in a way that brings them in, instead of furthering this idea that cinemas are very elitist spaces, especially independent cinemas. So these are two very distinct groups when working with young people, I think.
Oh, 100%. And it's so essential to make that distinction. How has that been, I suppose, working with schools? And Caroline, I wonder as well, if you're going into working with like sixth form colleges, how have you been able to sort of foster that interest for young people who they're not cinephiles, okay, interested, but how do you start planting that seed that this is an important part of culture?
I think with young programmers, I've particularly been very lucky that I had the time to sit down with them. But I've started by introducing myself, by telling them the names of my cats and the things that I love to do that aren't film wise, and just understanding what they like to do on their day to day, their cultural references, the place where they came from, and how we can find a way of translating the things that they love through cinema, which was something very important to me. And I think film is very special because it encompasses so many different things in so many different ways. And you can see variations of the same thing done by different people. And this is how we started. And just starting with short films, I showed them a lot of short films and kind of got feedback from them on the things that they liked. And from those short films, I can understand if you like this kind of film, then I think this feature film would be good. Because I don't think, well, the way that I work, I don't want to make them sit down through a 2-hour film that they might not engage with, because then when they come back, they're going to be thinking, oh my God, this is so boring. 2 hours for a 16-year-old is such a long time. So I think there's a lot of values in short films as well. And sometimes we do overlook them when engaging with young people, because of course we want them to see Saoirse Ronan and Kirsten Dunst and Zac Efron and all that. But there are a lot of short films that I think are a good way of introducing them to wider themes.
And are those shorts that are from sort of like locally made shorts, or is this something that sort of, I don't know, wide, like sort of more from more established filmmakers?
Well, I think Short of the Week is a great resource. They have a lot of free short films in there. We have also talked to hubs, maybe Into Film or Film Hub Scotland, or talking to festival curators, because they have curated short films for their festivals for quite some time. Here in Scotland, you have the Glasgow Short Film Festival, you have a short strand at the Edinburgh Film Festival, and sometimes they have had access to local filmmakers, and they will be able to send you over some links and you can go from there. So exploring your local network and talking to people who have done this work before you did is such a precious resource, really.
Yeah, I think the short film angle is a really interesting route to go down, because I remember reading an interview with Ben Wheatley, and he said the thing that really gives him hope for the future of cinema is young people constantly making short films on their phones. I mean, that's what they're doing. They're so kind of cine literate in a way, is that they are constantly making films, whether it's for TikTok or something like that. And we've worked with the Oxford University Filmmaking Foundation, which is a group of Oxford University students who, they're not film study students. They study all kinds of different subject matters, but they love filmmaking and they're budding filmmakers themselves. So we invite them to come into our cinema and show their short films and do a big premiere of kind of like a little festival of the films that they've made. And a lot of those people who have come and shown their short films here, they return again and again to the cinema because they start to feel a bit more of an ownership of the venue itself as well, which is really lovely to see.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I think it goes back to, I guess, what you're saying, Tyrone, about sort of starting them young, in a sense, is that relationship and connection to a space through sort of different, whether it's short films or different activities.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say that also, as well as the films, from what Haf was saying about doing the short films, it's a great idea. But also giving them ownership of the building themselves. I mean, it is, as Tom said, it is you're a community cinema. You're there for the people, so you do want them to be embedded in it. And we do. I mean, as you know, we do lots of different things. We do the short film nights, work with short film organisations, LSFF, but then we do swing dance lessons, we do poetry slams, we showcase local artists in our gallery. We do lots of different things like that. So people then start to trust your brand, I suppose, is what you would say. They trust you to know that they can come. I mean, we get lots of people who come for the Poetry Slam and never been to the cinema before. And then they see the space and they see the people. And I was going to say, one that's just occurred to me as we've been talking here is also to employ people and have the people who work at the cinema represent the community around you is really important. From what Caroline was saying, yeah, we are really open. We that's just where we are. We're in East London. We're open to everybody. We mix with everybody all the time. It seems very normal for us to just have all different walks of life coming through the cinema, and therefore your program is showing films that reflect that. But I don't think you realise the impact that has on people who come into the cinema and might not feel part of the community, but they come in, they can chat to someone about whatever it is in an open, friendly, safe environment, and go and have a swing dance lesson or watch some poetry or see some art that their friends put on, and then they might go and see a film that's relevant to them as well. And once they start to trust your cinema, the people, your brand, then we've found that people are taking more of a punt on films they might not normally go and watch. We try not to put on a film just because it's new. I mean, sometimes that's quite difficult. This last week or the last couple of weeks, I won't name any particular films, but there have been some new films in the marketplace that's very tempting for us to put on, which aren't the quality we'd like to put on, and not really our type of film. But because it's a new film and product is dropping off and the box office is not where you want it to be, you do think, oh, we should really put that film on. But I think once you do that, and if someone comes to see that film and they go, well, this isn't a Genesis film, they can lose that trust, and then you lose all that hard work you've built up by building that trust. So they might come to see a film, they don't know if they're going to like it or not. So I think it's quite difficult to stick to your guns with that, but I think it's very important. And then also with all the events you put on, all the partners you work with, all the people you employ, all the friends you invite, you've got to have that in mind all the time. So that's always there, so everyone feels safe and comfortable, and the trust has got to be there as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think, especially, from my own experience growing up, going to an independent cinema, you get to know what sort of thing they put on. And if there's something that seems sort of quite left field, you trust that it's going to be, because they put it on, you think, well, if they're putting it on, it must be quite interesting.
Yeah, that's exactly it, yeah.
What do you, why do you think there's perhaps hesitancy to work, so for some venues to work directly with, and I'm saying that with young programmers groups or takeovers, why do you think there can be a hesitancy for venues to work with young people in this way?
I think that there's obviously a financial risk if it's something you don't know, and you've got to build it up. You're going to take a hit initially. I mean, this is why funding is so important, because it does take a while. You're not just going to put it on, do a few posts on Insta, and then think, okay, this is going to work, and it works. It takes time. It can take years. It's worth it, because you do get, one of the questions on the Q&A I think was, do people who come for the classics come back to other films? And yes, they do. Once they do trust you and they have a good time, it's all about having a good time, isn't it? If you turn up somewhere and you've had a good time, most of the time, it's like if you go to a club and you can't remember the exact music they've played, you might not remember the exact films you saw those years ago, but you just remember you've had a good time. And I think it's the same kind of thing, with cinema. If you know you've had a good time, that builds up over the course of a year. Then you think, oh yeah, I'm going to go. I always have a good time when I go there. I might not know this film, and I might not even enjoy the film, but at least I've still had a good time there. So I think the resistance is going to be financially challenging initially. Most of the people who own cinemas are not engaged with that age community anymore directly. So it's about, and also we're probably all control freaks, so we don't like giving over any power or anything to anyone else. So to trust someone else is quite difficult, especially with your brand. You are giving them your baby to look after and spread out to different people. So I think that there's that. So it's all about the conversation. It's always about having a conversation with people. And for me, if I don't know, then I make sure I speak to them. Caroline mentioned Bobby, and all the guys there. I've got some great people who are with me, and they do answer every email. They do engage with the audience all the time, and we're very honest with each other. We're very honest and open with each other. And if they're not sure of something, then they will say they're not sure about it. And if I'm not sure, I will. But it's all about that trust, getting the right people in place, trusting the people you work with, being totally open and okay with making a huge mistake. But developing anything, you're going to make lots of mistakes. So it's just about trying to get the right people. And it's difficult. It's difficult to do that when you're in a position where you're running a business anyway, to then give it to someone a lot younger than you to say, yep, go and do this, and just trusting that they're going to do the right thing. So yeah, I think that's the thing, financial, and then just knowing who to engage with as well.
There is also the fact that not everyone understands that you can apply for incredible funds to work with young people. There are so many funds available. Well, not so many, I wish, but there are some funds available that you can apply. So, you don't always have to fully involve your capital when you're trying to engage with young people, especially if these are community-based projects that you can justify and you can prove that you're giving back to the community. You can go not only I think UK funds and bigger funds, but also small pots of money that come from councils, that come from local charities. And I think investigating websites that gather these opportunities frequently, and then maybe shaping a program that goes around that money that you can get, is also a smart way to do it, so you don't make that big of a bet.
Yeah, I think it's really important for people to know that funding is available. There also is this, if people haven't applied for funding, there is again another imagined barrier to going for that funding, because you think there's going to be a Bible of paperwork to go through. But I think once you've done it, I would advise everyone to try it and do it, because the organisations, as we all know, the organisations that want to that are making this money available want to give you the money. They need to give you the money. That's their reason for being. So they will help you through that process. It's quite daunting. I remember the first time I applied for any funding. First of all, being a businessman and coming from a family of business people, the idea of applying for funding was really against everything I've ever done. And so getting over that was one thing. And then thinking, we're going to have a mountain of paperwork to do was another thing. But actually going through the process was much easier than I thought. And the help you get from Film London in particular is great. Film London, BFI, they all help a huge amount, because they want you to do these things and they want to pay you and allow you to do it. So if you've got that mindset, it's a lot easier. But yeah, there is funding out there, definitely. And like Hafa says, from local councils, they've all got little pots of money that they want to help you with. So yeah, it's just knowing that and biting the bullet and going for it.
While we're on the subject of financials as well, going into something like trialing a scheme where we've cut the price of tickets for young people, the fear always was that, are we going to be doing ourselves out of income by doing something like this? You kind of hope that you increase the number of people that come through your door in a way that it doesn't affect the bottom line. And if there are people here watching it who do want a bit of kind of like stats that they can go back to their organizations and try and bend the ear of their financial departments or individuals, we looked at a couple of comparable periods while we were running the scheme and through some years post-pandemic, pre-pandemic as well, where we've had similar attendance numbers overall. And so we looked at October and November, and even though we cut the price of our young person's tickets, we saw a 58% rise on ticket income compared to 2019, and a 35% rise on ticket income for this age bracket in 2018 as well. So it hasn't affected our bottom line in a detrimental way. And it has actually really, really boosted not only the attendance of young people coming to our cinema, but has also boosted the ticket income for this age bracket as well. So in that sense, it's been a total success.
I mean, it's brilliant. And I think, young people generally are pretty skint, don't have a lot of extra income. We're sort of looking down the barrel of a cost of living crisis at the minute. And I think venues having sort of variety of price points, whether you have a specific young person offer or there's, on Mondays it's cheaper, on, at different points of the day, you can be able to go to the cinema for about a £5, give or take a couple of quid, is so important, and is such, I think, as you demonstrated, Tom, with those stats, a super simple and really financially beneficial, tactic and direction to take.
Yeah, and understanding that even though I can assume that all of us here deeply love cinema, it is not the most important thing in someone's life, especially a young person who's trying to figure out ways of becoming self-sufficient and navigating the world and taxes and bills and things that break in their houses. So of course it is extremely important, and offering them a place where they can go and relax and enjoy something that is cultural and that not as stressful, hopefully, but it's not their priority. And assuming that they will come to us with every single spare penny that they have can also be very dangerous. So building that relationship with trust, but also understanding that we're not their biggest priority, is also something very important.
I can't believe that, Heifer. I think all life's questions, all life's questions can be answered in the movies. I think that was
when I was 16, I used to skip meals so I could go watch films, but I do not recommend that. It is not healthy.
Don't do that. That's not good. I think you're right. I think one is someone said to me, and someone in the business actually once said I asked them if they'd seen a film, and they said, "Oh no, I haven't. I haven't got the." Oh, do you? Yeah, they said they've stopped going to the cinema because they haven't got the time to waste on a film that might be bad. And it really struck me. But then I quickly realised that it's, as you rightly say, that money is one thing, but also people's time is so important now. And you rightly said 2 hours for a 16-year-old is incredible for them to spend on watching a movie. So, it's people's time. They don't want to think, oh, I could go there and I'm sitting in the cinema for 2 hours and it's terrible, as well as paying the money. So again, it just comes back to that building the trust and hoping that they have a good time. But I can't believe it's not the most important thing for everybody, though.
Yeah, I mean that reason of if I'm going to spend a £5 or 11 quid or 15 quid, I want some people, there needs to be certain assurance that it's not going to be terrible, because that money could have been spent on something else that perhaps might have given you that assurance. But then I suppose there's the other side of the coin is it's all right to not like something. It's okay to go to an experience and be like, I didn't like that. What didn't I like about it? And that then provides inspiration to be, to find and create other things and do things for yourself that might appeal more.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we've found very successful as well is the Q&A. If we can get part of the filmmaking team to come and do a Q&A, obviously always good to get the director and some talent down there as well. But I think that then, again, from my own experience, learning from my own experiences, I remember the first Q&A I went to, I found the film quite difficult. And then the director was there and she explained the process of the film, why she made the film, why she did so. And it made it a really enjoyable experience. And even though I like the film, but it was a very difficult subject, even though I still found it quite a difficult subject, I enjoyed the whole experience much more. And it made me look at films in a different way. So I think you're right, though. If you've got, you can go to a film and not enjoy it, but if you've got a reason, or at least being able to have a discussion afterwards in the bar or wherever, or even with the filmmakers about that film and why you didn't enjoy it and why they made the film the way that, I think again that's another level and another something else you're giving, especially to young people. I think it's very important, and another way for them to, as you rightly say, it's okay if I don't like this film. I can have a difference of opinion. I'm still getting something out of it by having a conversation about it, which is great.
Yeah, definitely. And I sort of want to go back to what we were talking about, sort of being comfortable in the space. And I know, Caroline, we've spoken about this sort of quite a lot, is, I suppose, threshold anxiety, but allowing, I think especially due to the fact that funding's been cut for spaces for young people, community centres are being cut, all these things are closing. It's how can these community spaces, cinema spaces, be a place where young people, whether they're working directly with the venue, young programmers groups, or an advisory group, how can a venue make a space feel welcome?
So there's like certain areas where, say like Genesis, if we're using it for example, you've got like Queen Mary down the road. Even you're kind of near to Whitechapel, Shoreditch area, which is like a lot of like young creatives like hang around there. So sometimes, you know, when they're having their meetings, or I say meetings, yeah, I'm not like good, like, you know what I mean? They're like, they're little like I think there's been places like Miranda and Ace Hotel that shut down during the pandemic. Even, you know, the whole like working from home, some people mentally can't do that every day. They just need to go somewhere and like work. So I think actually cinemas can use their like area for people to like sit down, buy your coffee, buy something to eat, and utilize your space that way. And you'll be surprised by like how important like ambience and like a nice setting is. People might just come there to do their little means, and they might be like, oh, let's go and watch a film later, or I actually saw a Q&A coming up later on. So I really think there's power in like utilizing your space and making sure yeah, because I there was even like a hotel, like people are creative as well. There was a hotel in like Shoreditch called Citizen M, and like it used to be like the hotspot. Everyone used to go there because it was just like a nice area. But then I think like it could just take one thing of people like not feeling welcome, and then another place is the new hotspot that everyone goes to. So I think really kind of understanding that you can actually increase the footfall of your cinema by just like your coffee or your seating area, just like getting somewhere that people can charge their phone. And that's a way of also like, you know, having that as the first introduction. And kind of cinemas can be even though it's a cinema, like let's keep it what it is, but you can also kind of make it like a multi-art space and like elevate, keep elevating what the space means to the community, really.
Yeah, I think the past sort of last year, I worked with Exeter Phoenix on a young audience panel initiative. That was one of the first things I was, when doing the research of getting 18 to 25-year-olds to come be advisors for the cinema, but also providing them with working opportunities to host panels or whatever. It was that space, and especially the cafe bar space, I think is quite an interesting, where you have sort of meetings of different people, whether they're there to be in the cinema or whether they're there to be and to work and to, you know, just, I think just somewhere to be a lot of the time. Hafa, how has it been working with the young programmers group? I think sometimes there is a risk that working with young people can feel transactional. How do venues avoid doing this, and what's things that you would sort of advice you would give to any venue wanting to start a scheme like this, things to avoid and things to definitely do?
I will say I have been extremely lucky once again that I have time to create a relationship with them and to ask them important questions frequently, like, are you still engaged with this? Is this still bringing something that you're interested in? And also, I think a common mistake to make, and it's something I've made many times, is to assume that younger people are not fully formed people, and to talk to them in a way that is patronizing, or to assume that you know more and that what you're offering is inherently better than anything that it could get somewhere else. So I was very grateful that they took the time to be with me. They studied, I was working with working class students who had to have a job. So they were studying and working, and they were being so generous with their time and with their energy. They are constantly yawning. They are tired teenagers. And here I am trying to talk to them about aspect ratio and ticket sales. And I'm like, oh my God, thank you so much. Also, another thing, food. Give them food. Buy biscuits. Teenagers love chocolate fingers. I have learned that. I have bought so much. I don't know if I can say brand names in here, but Cadbury got me through 2021. It was incredible. If they were fed, I think they were comfortable. I think when we go back to the principles of marketing and anthropology, if someone has their basic needs met, if they're warm, if they're fed, if they're comfortable, they're much more likely to engage with whatever you're showing them. So we're getting back to this idea of having a space that is comfortable. And once again, I've been very lucky to have had a space within the cinema I work in to bring them in, to have sofas and to be able to watch a film in a screen that was comfortable. And another thing is, yeah, in order not to feel transactional, it has to have something for them. So I was very open in asking, what can you take out of this? Can I write you letters of recommendation for universities if you want to? Can I speak to your employers and tell them that you're doing this? Can I help you with anything? And also, I think something I always tell people is to be prepared for the fact that you're not only going to be, sorry, I have cats, you're going to be listening to them because their lunchtime is approaching. But hopefully they'll stop. And also just making sure that, yeah, that things are structured in a way that benefits them. And to understand that you're their emotional guardian, and that they're going to open up to you if you're lucky enough, that they have family problems, that they are going through a phase in their lives where everything is so intense. And sometimes when you're showing a film, and I've done this quite a lot, I talked about trigger warnings. I talked about emotional conversations that might be happening within this film that might trigger emotional responses that perhaps I might not be fully equipped to deal with, but I would be doing my best to do so. So there are so many aspects of this interaction that I think need to be thought through before you invite people to your cinema and offer them something like this. It's not just bringing teenagers to the cinema and showing them a film. But yeah, I think I might have talked a bit too much, but hopefully I answered your question there.
I think it's really important. That's why I think it's really important for us to work with organisations that understand things like this. So I remember when I think it was actually Bobby or Eleanor said to me, should we be putting trigger warnings in front of films? And I was like, what's trigger warnings? And we don't understand, or I didn't understand what that was. So then it's explained to me, and obviously you think, oh my God, yeah, we should have been doing this a while ago when we're showing films to particular groups. But that's why it's very important to be completely open and understand that you don't understand everything, and talk to specific groups, like here on the panel, and the groups we talk to, because they do know the problems that exist in either in their community or just in their groups of the people they speak to directly. We can't speak to everybody directly, so that's another reason why it's good to work with professionals. You know, that's what we should be doing.
I'm just going to look into the chat. There's a couple of questions in there. So this is both open for everybody. This is from Ellen. If anyone wants to work with both Open Call young programmers and a school group, is there a difference in how those programmer groups work?
A different way in which they work.
Yeah.
I think when you're working with a school, and this is one of the many reasons why I decided to do so, is that you have a network of support that includes teachers and parents and counselors and people who have worked with these pupils for longer than you have. So when I decided to work with this school, I took the time to talk to teachers and counselors and understand specific needs. I had an autistic pupil in my group. I had someone who was non-binary. And just understanding their experiences before I started talking to them was really important to me, because if you say something wrong at this tender age, and if you treat them in a way that is not ideal, I think it leaves a scar that is quite hard to mend, and bringing them back to your cinema becomes impossible. Oh my God, I have a singing cat. Apologies. But yeah, schools were a really good resource, and also these students know each other. So something that happened when I brought groups of people who didn't know each other is that not only did they have to gain trust in you and in the space and in the program that you're doing, but in each other. So they have to feel comfortable to talk to each other and to expose feelings about these films that you're talking about that might be hard for them to vocalize. So the school has been a very fruitful environment for me, and it's something that I greatly recommend. You might not get diversity in a sense, a geographic sense, but you will get such a wide range of support.
Oh, definitely, that's such a good answer. Just touching quickly back onto the trigger warnings. Someone's asked, could you please clarify what you mean by trigger warnings? Maybe give an example.
I think I'm sure the others would chip in here as well, but it's things that in a film that might that the audience might have experienced, sexual abuse, anything like that. It could be eating disorders, anything like that that people could have had an experience about, and it could trigger a bad response or bad memory for them. I'm sure the other guys would chip in here as well.
Yeah, I remember that being sort of a particular issue with Spencer, because it's the depictions of her eating disorder and bulimia it's not really written anywhere how prevalent that is.
Yeah, I think also it comes back to this idea of safety, and sometimes even if you think it's not a massive trigger warning, to just have a frank conversation and say, guys, this film touches upon this and this and this, it makes the experience a bit more safeguarded. And also a big thing I don't think I mentioned before, watch every single film that you're showing to these young people, please. Oh my God, do not show them anything that you haven't watched yourself. Because then you can have a better understanding of the things that you're showing. It sounds such a simple concept, but sometimes you watch something 10 years ago and you remember it differently. So watch it again.
Yes, very true. I mean, it's really good advice to watch. I mean, but I think it's difficult because you want to try and get a wider range of people watching everything that you're showing. For us, we've got 5 screens. We might have 10 films going on at any one time. You have festivals coming in and out, so we try and watch as much as we can. We try and get the organisers to give us any advice as well. But it would be really advantageous if the actual filmmakers, distributors, like the mainstream distributors, could give us an idea of trigger warnings as well. I think it's becoming more people realising more that there are these things. But I think if it could come from the filmmakers or from the distributors straight away, it would be good for us to know that, because one person could watch the film and think, as you said, Hafra, I mean, I've seen films years ago and I think, oh, this is a great film. And you put it on again, you think, oh no, that's really bad. Like some of the old Bond movies, I put them on now, and I'm like, oh my God, I remember this being great, but it's so sexist now. It's sort of really terrible. So it's good to try and watch everything, but it would be good if there was. I mean, I know IMDb's pretty good with certain warnings on their site, but I think from the distribution companies, it would be really good if they could give every cinema an idea of triples and keep those up to date.
Definitely. And then one question from Bridget: do you have any particular advice for smaller venues? Sadly, we don't all have access to large space suitable for meetings, a space in which to bring people in for other reasons, i.e. a cafe bar space. So
Partners, find partners. I do a lot of community work, and you would be surprised with how many venues around you will have obsolete space that they would kindly give it to you. So walk around your neighborhood, maybe try and talk to community hubs, community centers. I know religion is a big thing, but churches have incredible spaces, and sometimes you can do a partnership and utilize that space.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, just partnerships with other people, and free cinema tickets goes a long way. People were very happy to, you can sponsor things and give them free tickets for, if they're doing, especially with churches and things like that, if they're doing raffles or prizing and stuff like that, start to engage with them in that, and then use their space for your events.
We just got a couple of minutes left. I suppose the last question I have for everybody is, how has having young people in your space changed the venue for the better?
We've got a lot more Cadbury's fingers everywhere for some reason. I don't know what that's all about. No, it's been great, and it's nice to, I think, coming out of the last 2 years we've had, we've seen that those people are the people who come in, the young people are the people who want to come in, queuing out the door to come in when we first opened, just vibrant, full of life. It's so refreshing to have that after being open, closed for so long, and also how grateful they've been for us being open and surviving and everything else. The support they've given us, we were getting people buying tickets and gift cards and stuff like that. Even though we were closed, they didn't know when they were going to be able to use them again, just to keep us going, which is really touching. It brings a lovely energy. It just is a perfect group of people to have in the building. It makes everyone feel good. Yes, it's fantastic. It's just nice to have them back in, and nice that we feel like it's a real community partnership with these guys. It's great.
Okay, I'm going to have to wrap it up there, guys, but thank you all for chatting with me this morning. I think it's been a really great conversation, and thanks to everybody for watching. If you have any questions at all about how to develop your young audiences, please don't hesitate to get in touch.